What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of for Chainsaw Man. This is episode 2, and with me, as always, I have Blue Spade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is a pretty decent episode. Pretty much, this episode introduces us to two new characters. First one being Aki, and of course, the second notable one being Power. The one thing I do want to point out is that they did end up cutting one scene from the manga. But personally, after watching this, I think it was kind of a necessary cut because I don't think that one particular scene in the manga really added much to anything. So what happens is after the events of the last episode, Makima takes Denji to a rest shop to eat breakfast after he pretty much didn't really eat anything after what happened after the events of the last episode. So what happens in the manga is Denji hears a noise that a girl is being attacked by a devil, and he goes out into the forest to help. And of course, he easily dispatches the devil with his chainsaw powers. However, like I said, they decided to completely cut that scene out completely, so we don't really get to see Chainsaw Man at all in this entire episode.
No. Instead, we just kind of get, pretty much, I would assume, if I remember correctly, the way it happens in the manga, where Makima introduces herself to Denji, and Denji introduces himself, and gives him some clothes, and Denji finally gets to eat, like you said, I feel like that scene, it didn't really need to be in the anime. Like, it's one of those scenes where I'm not really, I feel like it could have been cut because it doesn't really seem to add anything to the plot, because I think Denji passes out shortly after that in the manga, and he also kind of passes out here because he has something, because he's he requires blood or something like that, or nutrients.
Because he's a devil now. He works.
Same with it works like he's a fiend or any of the other devils, where they basically require blood as sustenance.
Yeah, and there's another thing I do want to point out is people have been having some complaints with the translations at the end of the episode last week of what Makima told Denji about either I kill you as a devil or I can keep you as a human. Now, that was the translation from last week's episode. However, in the manga, the original translation was that I could keep you as a pet. And I don't know if that was an intentional change or if they just, or for whatever reason. But this, what happens in this episode pretty much reinforces the fact that Makima is treating Denji as more of a pet than a human.
Yeah, because she refers to I think she refers to him as basically like a dog, or that he should answer her as by saying wolf or something like that. So it kind of reinforces the whole I'm going to keep you as a pet thing. I feel like that probably was a mistranslation, because it doesn't really make sense if you think about it, because Denji's he's not a human anymore.
No.
So but
what's interesting that he's not trying to come across as a human anymore. He just the way he just completely lowers himself in this episode. This
is basically where Denji's obsession with, I guess you'd say it really more the end of the last episode, but in this episode, you really see Denji's obsession with Makima. He's pretty much just completely falls in love with her and is willing to do anything she asks of him. And which leads him to be very easily, manipulated and controlled by Makima. Because especially with Makima saying things like, when Denji asks what kind of guy she's into, she says the Denji type of guy. So it kind of in a way sort of leads him on and makes him just, want to obey her even more, I would assume. Because she's, he's already just completely obsessed and just head over heels for her. So he's willing to do anything she would ask him to do.
Considering the lifestyle that he's had over the years it
kind of makes sense, because it's he sees her, I guess, as sort of a savior So I guess he kind of like treats her like like it does kind of make sense like why he treats her that way. But I will say that is one of the I see where I see where they were going, or where the manga at least was going with his character in this regard. But Denji basically throughout the series is completely just obsessed with Makima, and it's one of the more annoying aspects of his character. But there is kind of a point to it. But yeah, it's going to be pretty prevalent throughout the series, I'll just say.
Yeah, and of course we get introduced to Aki, who was one of the other main characters that or who takes, I guess, is forced to take Denji under his wing thanks to Makima, and of course Aki immediately does not take a liking to Denji just because of his mainly his obsession with Makima, and he tries to beat some sense into Denji, but unfortunately he gets kicked in the nuts at least several times in this one scene, which is a little bit funny.
Yeah, it was. I do remember this from the manga. Denji just kicks him in the balls multiple times, and like Hayakawa, like I can kind of see where he's coming from though, because he sees Denji as just another, similar to some other devil hunter candidates that joined up just wanting to make money, or because of other petty reasons, and they end up getting killed. So of course Haki sees this as the wrong kind of line of work for Denji. And it kind of just starts off as a sort of antagonistic relationship between the two of them.
Yeah, and of course things don't really get much better for Aki after he's pretty much forced to to have him as his roommate, which doesn't really work out for him too well. Just having to put up with him and his whatever.
Yeah, because as we see, Denji is a terrible roommate.
Yeah, of course he's also a moocher as well. Just just scrounging up almost everything in his fridge, and then of course using up the entire roll of toilet paper, which doesn't make things even better. So then of course we get to another scene in which Aki and then Denji are tasked to kill a devil somewhere in Tokyo, and then of course Denji manages to easily dispatch him by decapitating him, and then Aki of course lectures Denji about his past, about how Aki's forced to watch his family members die thanks to a devil or a fiend, and what he's willing to do to to get through in life, to make sure they're exterminated, I guess. But for Denji, he thinks he still goes back and on his dream, original dream of wanting to live a better lifestyle than he did before, living in an old shack, just eating slices of bread every single time. Now that he's living a better life, working under Makima, eating better food, having baths and all that other stuff. But he feels at this point that he should strive for more, which it's just understandable. But I guess his need to strive for more is kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It's a little bit I don't know.
It's more he just has very basic needs right now. I mean, as we learned in the first episode, one of the things he wants, of course, is to have a girlfriend, or of course, right now his more specific need is to touch Makima's breasts. And that's kind of his main, I guess, motivation at the moment. So yeah, he has very shallow motivations. He doesn't really have he's not really striving, to go above and beyond like some guy take over a company or some other accomplishments or something like that. And the other thing too is we learned that because Aki was also kind of annoyed because Denji did not transform into Chainsaw Man, and he just took out the fiend by cutting its head off with the axe. and Aki was expecting him to transform. And we learned the reason, of course, why Denji did not transform into Chainsaw Man was because he didn't want to get blood all over the room and all over these stash of dirty magazines that he found in the room, so he could take them for himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean that's what's all that's what continues to be the most interesting aspect about Denji is just basically his only goals is just to live like just to have just the basic needs of like a regular citizen would, rather than just like I said, just striving to go above and beyond than what he normally does.
Yeah, I mean, unlike a lot of other, like I do also kind of find that interesting about Denji is that unlike a lot of other protagonists in anime, he doesn't really have like really high ambitions or lofty goals or anything like that. They are very shallow, but his character does kind of develop past that at a certain point, but it does get like it is also at the same time kind of I mean it's different but also kind of annoying at the same time, I guess, because it's just like he doesn't really strive for anything more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and soon afterwards we finally get introduced to I guess people could say it's the fan favorite character, Power. Yeah. She gets assigned alongside Denji to go patrolling out in the rooftops.
And Power is a fiend, and we learned that fiends are basically like corpses that devils have taken over.
Yeah, and of course she has the tendency to she's you could say like she's very bloodlust at times, considering like how much she's eager to go out and find and kill something. I guess, and considering like what happens in the end of this episode, it's pretty understandable as why she why the way she is, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, she's just kind of looking around for anything that she can kill. Basically just because she wants blood and she's hungry for blood. Yeah, I mean, like immediately Power just comes off as very just like she's very energetic, and she's also just a very quirky character, and in general, like that she's like you said, she's a fan favorite character for a reason. But I'm looking forward to getting more of her in the next episode because yeah, I guess a little bit of a spoiler because she does end up, of course, because we know that she is technically on Aki's team in the Public Safety Bureau. She ends up living with Denji and Aki, so we get we get her as another addition. But yeah, she of course, like we end up finding out there is a devil like around, and I forget what they called this devil. It was like I forget exactly, but basically Power finds the devil, and she immediately just goes to take it out with like a giant hammer that she wields.
I think it was the cucumber devil or whatever it is.
Cucumber devil, yeah. She just jumps from the top of the building and just splatters it with her giant hammer, basically. It just it's pretty hilarious. Yeah, that's kind of where the episode ends too. Like it went by pretty quick in my opinion. It's we didn't get Chainsaw Man transforming into or Denji transforming into Chainsaw Man this episode, but I do think we probably will get that in maybe the next episode because there is a devil that Denji ends up fighting, I think, pretty soon. As Chainsaw Man. But we also kind of get one of the multiple different endings we're going to get in these 12 episodes, and I like the music, and it has a very interesting art style. It's very like sketchy. I don't know how to describe it. It's very basic looking, but I kind of like the way it looks. It's really interesting. But it's just going to be weird that we're going to be getting different endings every episode.
Yeah.
So I feel like I might have to comment on all of them just because like they're all going to be different.
Yeah, it's just a completely different tone than the last week's ending, which is what was called Chainsaw Blood.
Yeah.
And now it's a more like it's a more like toned down sort of tone for this.
And this one
episode.
just kind of shows Denji doing various things as well as Aki and Power. You know, of course, as we got introduced to them in this episode. But yeah, I thought it's another great episode. People won't have to, you know, worry about the CG this week at least. I mean, and I mean, it could improve as the series goes on, or maybe there will be maybe some hand drawn scenes with Chainsaw Man. I mean, who knows? But yeah, none of that this week. Yeah, I thought it was a decent episode. It's definitely more focused on just kind of introducing these characters, which are going to be major characters throughout the series, and just also introducing us to more of how the world works and how devils work, lore regarding the fiends, and also just, you know, what public safety is and what they do. Yeah, I thought it was a decent episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about it.
It was a decent episode. I expected that we were going to get introduced to both Aki and Power eventually. Yeah, and I think this is a good episode for them to properly introduce them. I mean, hopefully we'll get to see a little bit more development with them, and, you know, of course, the interactions between the entire trio of the main cast. Makima is still like another major factor, like on what role she's going to end up playing, and what she's really going to end up doing with Denji for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, but that all being said, until next Tuesday, we will see you all next time.